What's up, CJ's Keto Kitchen family? This is CJ.
And Sarah.
It's time for another Keto
Conversations.
So let's get started. Alright, so tonight we're talking about something that we think is pretty relevant in the times we're living in. And we're calling this Inflation Proof Keto. So before we get started, these are just some really basic tips about how to shop, how to do keto on a budget. There's other videos out there about keto on a budget. We are not coming to you with any revelations.
Earth-shattering new tips.
Yeah, but the information is relevant to the times that we're living in. If you've watched the news, if you've read the newspaper, you know that inflation is higher than it's been in years.
If you've gone to the gas pump,
yes.
If you know that we are having issues with supply and receiving products.
Supply chain issues.
Or train, or boat, all of them.
Yes, yes. So we're having all types of issues in our economy, and this is not a video about politics. It's not a video about any of that. This is really a video focusing on some tips you can use, some things you can think about as you try to do keto. Whether you just started keto, because we've heard before, keto is so expensive. Keto is so expensive. And or if you've been doing keto for a while and you are feeling the pinch of inflation because gas is so high, food has gone up so high. So again, we're not even going to tell you anything that's earth-shattering. There might be some things that you pick up from us that maybe you never thought about. If that's the case, that's good. So you've got the notes. Let's jump into it and get this rolling.
Okay, so the first tip, and this tip is in a lot of our keto conversations where we talk about this lifestyle, and that is keep it simple. Meat, fat, veggies, eggs, your staple keto foods can be some of your least expensive foods at the grocery store. Shopping the outer aisles is generally a cost-saving place to shop.
Okay, so like today we had, what did we have for dinner? It was some kind of hamburger or something.
Hamburger patties with cheese and broccoli.
Okay.
And that was it.
And then I found out after we ate dinner that the hamburger was Walmart special clearance.
It was on clearance because it needed to be used by tomorrow. And that will, of course, be discussed a little bit further on in this conversation.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry. But yeah, keep your keto simple as far as food. When we were doing the fat fast, that was actually one of the things about it was really simple.
And we've tried to kind of cling to some of the things that we found helpful while we did that, and that is to really keep it simple. Meat and a vegetable, a high-fat meat and a vegetable, or even a leaner cut of meat with a vegetable that has fat on it. So
Sure. And so keep your keto simple. That is helpful because as you're shopping, again, we make recipes, and this might be I have not looked at
That's what I was going to say too. No, I haven't. It's not part of this.
I haven't looked at the notes. But yes, we make food. We may have a food channel. We make recipes to give you options.
Yes, you're saying, oh, you make food.
To give you options.
Right.
But again, as we've said for years, we do not eat like that every night. We don't have a casserole in the oven every night. We don't have some fancy dessert every night. We keep our keto simple. We have those items when we cook them for the channel, and they may last us a couple of days. But after that, it's back to, just some really basic food.
And what I prepare on this channel, for the most part, is home-style food. It is economy cooking. It is casseroles. It is simple desserts. Yes, we do have a few items in our repertoire that are for special occasions. They're for holidays, they're for birthdays, they're for things like that. But for the most part, what I make is generally inexpensive food, home style food, because that's how I was raised, that's how I prefer to eat. Maybe that's not what's popular, because I don't make a lot of your more modern foods, but that's just my style of cooking. And so even though, like CJ said, we do have a recipe several times a month on this channel, we don't eat that way every night. And when we do make a casserole or we do make a dessert, we will be eating off of that for multiple days, because both of us like leftovers.
And and those items are, again, I think you said this, but some of them are really super special occasions. Some of them are designed for if you're going to have a family gathering, you can take something keto for you to stay on keto. Or they can be a meal that you can prepare fairly quickly for the entire family to eat, and nobody knows the difference that it's keto or not. So let's get to point 2.
Okay.
Don't want to stay here
So the second point is to buy in bulk whenever possible. And I'm a big believer in that. We have a Costco membership. If you don't have a Costco membership, there are other places that sell items in bulk. Almost every town has some kind of Super Saver grocery store where you can buy large packages of meat, large packages of vegetables. We're coming into farmers market seasons. All of those are good tips for saving money, where you can buy a lot of things at a discount. So you're buying a large amount of something at a discount.
Yeah.
But that does go in with point 3. So we could combine point 2 and point 3, and that is having a second fridge, a box freezer, and a food saver. So when you do buy in bulk at whatever location you have decided is the best value, you need to be able to then preserve those foods to the best of your ability so that they don't go bad.
Right. Now, it's funny that I hear Sarah say those words, because there was a period of time in our marriage where you were shopping all the time.
We were not married.
We weren't married. Okay.
We lived in different
So you had
households.
not come to the full come over to the best way of shopping.
Okay.
I'm an old dude. Actually, my parents.
Real old.
My parents always had a freezer. My parents always had an extra refrigerator.
My parents did too.
And so me buying in bulk was just a normal. I mean, it's just something I saw all the time. In fact, I go to see my folks now, and I think they actually have 3 freezers, full size freezers, and all they did was, as they replaced freezers or refrigerators, they didn't get rid of the old ones. They kept them, and they kept moving them to
and that's what
places.
we've done.
That's what we've done.
Our big giant stainless beast over here that we got a couple of years ago, it now lives in the house. And the refrigerator that we had before that was still fine, just not large enough for our expanded family when we did get married, it went out to the garage. That's where it lives. And we also have a chest freezer. So we have 2 refrigerators, one with a freezer on top, and then a standalone freezer, because that is how we like to do things. That's the way we were both raised. Yeah. And it does make a difference. And then food saving, you turned me on to. And now both my mom and my sister practice food saving. If you don't know what that is, it's a device that actually almost like shrink wraps your food.
Right.
And
Food Saver is actually one of the brands.
Right.
There's
you
other.
Can buy
there's
it
other.
Not. It's like
Yeah.
Kleenex being the brand name of facial tissues.
Yeah. There's other
names.
There's other names. I'm trying to think what those things are actually called. People call them Food Savers, but Food Saver is actually a brand of it.
Right.
But there's other devices or machines that do the same.
But it takes the air out
Right.
of your food so that you're able to not get freezer burn on whatever you're preserving. And I've used it for so many different things, not just meat, vegetables. I have food saved extra cranberry sauce and things that I've made over the holidays in case you want to have some of those seasonal things that you can't always find at other times of year. So.
And I would say, and this Costco's not paying me, but I would buy, if I'm going to buy a Food Saver, I would buy it from Costco, and I would have a membership at Costco for 2 things. Gas, number 1, and then Food Saver bags.
Actually, they're cheaper on Amazon and they're just as good.
What?
My sister bought my mom like 500 of them in varying sizes, and they were dirt cheap, and they work phenomenal.
Strike my comment. I'm so sorry.
But that just goes to what we're saying is that
but we've got
spend the initial amount.
Yes.
And then
Oh
you're
yeah,
golden.
we've got a food saver that's laying out here in our backyard, and I hate to say it in our backyard, but it's like on our deck that we need to just throw in the trash. It's an old one, but it's been replaced, but it still works.
You just have to fiddle with it a little bit more.
Yeah, it still works, and I had that one probably for
like 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not.
So they last a really long time. You don't need one.
So you spend the money up front, and then you can save money over time. And if you got a husband that goes hunting, fishing,
if you garden,
yeah,
or you have neighbors that garden, you are gonna need it. It is totally worth it.
Yeah.
Ask for it for Christmas.
But now buying in bulk also can go the other way, because there's some ingredients in places where you buy in bulk where you can just buy enough of what you need.
One of our later points.
And again, I'm not looking at the notes whatsoever. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's all right. So we'll skip to number 4. Buy in season, because in-season foods are usually less expensive. So we are coming into a season where vegetables and fruits are more readily available and less money. So right now here in Washington State, we're coming into where we're getting strawberries in the grocery store. I made a strawberry dessert. I've made strawberry jam. It's because you can get 1.5 pounds of strawberries for about $2.48 in our grocery store right now. It's a very good time to buy those kinds of foods and use them, eat them because they're in season, freeze them. Now your vegetables are coming into season that maybe you don't normally like to buy frozen, or that don't taste good all year round, things like asparagus and, some of your more seasonal foods. Buying in season, you're going to save money because those foods are less expensive because it is the season that they're growing in.
Okay. All right, what's next?
The next one is buy frozen. So on the flip side, sometimes buying frozen things can be more fresh. Using asparagus as an example. Right now you might go to the grocery store and find asparagus, like I did for our frittata recipe, and it was beautiful. I was able to find really wonderful asparagus. But on the flip side, if you live in another country and you're currently in winter time, maybe you can't get very good asparagus. So buying frozen would be the fresher bet, because a lot of times when things are frozen, they are frozen right there on site where the plants are harvested. So it can be very fresh instead of riding for multiple days in a truck to get to you and then be put out on the grocery store shelves. And a lot of times it's less expensive too. Like if you go to, I shop at Walmart quite often because there's one right around the corner. And a lot of their frozen vegetables are like 99 cents, $1.29 for a whole bag. I almost always buy my cauliflower frozen. Because yes, I can break it down, I can rice it myself, but it's messy. And if I don't have to make a mess, and I can just buy it already prepared in its frozen state, that is generally what I do.
Right.
So, yeah, so definitely frozen. Frozen meat can be a good deal too, depending on what you buy. Frozen shrimp versus fresh. Frozen fish can be less expensive versus buying fresh, and a lot of times it's very delicious because, like I said, they freeze it right there where it's manufactured. So it can be a very nice frozen, fresh, and economic option.
Right. And then you were talking about like the asparagus, which kind of reminded me of, when we do recipes, I hope people know that, the recipes are just a template for you to take and do however you need to do for your family or whatever you need to do. So again, if you're living in a place where asparagus isn't in season or it's hard for you to put broccoli in it or put something else in it. You don't have to make the recipes exactly like we make them. You have the license to do that because you're cooking at your house, and we're not coming to your house to see how you're making your food. So
and generally, if you watch my recipe presentations or read our food blog, then you know that I generally give you additional options for ingredients. If you don't have, powdered sweetener, use granular and do it in your coffee grinder. If you don't have a certain fruit, use this. If you can't buy this, use this. I try to be aware that not everyone has access to what we do here in the United States, or they don't have access economically. So I do try and provide alternatives whenever I can think of one for you to do something else.
Okay, what's the next one?
So the next point is progress to food quality over time. So when you first start this lifestyle, you're working on progress, not perfection. And so this tip is more about perhaps buying things that aren't organic necessarily or super expensive, buying fattier cuts of meat, which is actually more beneficial for you on this lifestyle. I was thinking about when I'm saying fattier cuts of meat, I'm talking about buying meat on the bone. Almost always meat on a bone is less expensive. And so sometimes when you are buying these types of meats, you might have to break them down if you want the preparation a little bit different. If you're looking for a boneless, skinless chicken thigh, for instance, then you could always buy a skin-on, bone-in chicken thigh for a much less expensive price and then process it yourself at home to save money. Or I just like preparing them that way because they can be quite delicious, because meat prepared on the bone has a lot more flavor in it.
Right.
So,
okay.
So that is definitely something, things like saving your bacon drippings, just small things, cooking with that. Buying, ground beef with a higher fat percentage. The higher the fat percentage, the cost usually almost always goes down. So, which is what you want on this lifestyle anyway, because you're going for a low carb, high fat style.
Right.
So,
right.
So, you don't need grass fed everything. If you can get it for a similar price, then wonderful. And maybe as your lifestyle progresses and you cut out some foods, you can afford to bring in more of your organic things and etc.
Yeah, and we've never been a big proponent of that you've got to have everything grass-fed, everything organic. You can still have success on keto without grass-fed, free-range.
We had grass-fed butter on our broccoli tonight.
Yes.
But that was because we buy generic grass-fed butter.
Right.
So.
And that was because we were excited that it finally showed up at our Costco, and we could buy it, and it was $2 cheaper than the Kerrygold.
Almost the same price as just regular butter.
Yes, it wasn't. In fact, it may have actually been a little bit cheaper than the regular butter. So
we buy it and eat it strictly for when you are going to taste the butter, like on our vegetables. I don't cook with it. It's not. Yeah. It's for finished foods, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then what's this? Buy specialty foods online or bulk food.
So that's what you were discussing earlier, when someone wants to make something and they want to participate in buying the ingredients that they might need, such as almond flour, natural sweeteners, etc. And you were saying that you can actually buy those in bulk foods. So bulk foods is different than buying in bulk. So when we're talking about buying in bulk, we're talking about buying large quantities in a large package, breaking it down, etc. Bulk foods is generally when you go to a grocery store and they have the bins of food and you put them into the bag and then you write on it wherever the bin is from. And that way you can get, say if you wanted to make something that had low carb ingredients in it, then you would just buy the amount that you needed so you can save money. If you just want a cup of almond flour, you could buy a cup of almond flour.
Right.
And in that way, you might then be able to prepare some of these specialty foods that you might like to have and still save money if you don't want to buy a large bag.
Yeah.
Another good way to save on those type of ingredients is buying online. A lot of times it can be less expensive to buy from a grocer online, whether that's Amazon or there's a bunch of other specialty, Thrive Market, there's specialty food places that give you a discount on those types of food items. And I find that a lot of times I can get a larger container than if I were to try and buy it locally at my grocery store. I might get like a pound versus 12 ounces for the same price. So you just kind of have to shop around.
And I think we get a lot of our keto stuff that we have to use for recipes and just, I guess, in general, through Amazon or through online sellers.
And that's why we always link to our list on Amazon, is because that is where we get a lot of our cooking ingredients.
And we also understand that everybody doesn't live close to, I mean, we live in a pretty metropolitan area. I mean, I can drive to one area and see like, huge Amazon warehouses.
We live in Washington State.
Just
this
because
is where Jeff Bezos lives.
Yeah. But I understand that everybody doesn't.
Right.
And you might live in a rural area, but still, if you plan ahead, you can get things. If you have space, you can get sweeteners.
My sister lives in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, and they still buy everything from Amazon. So.
Yeah, and so that's just a tip.
But places like grocery outlets, some of your bargain market discount places, almost every town has some kind of discount grocer. A lot of times they get a lot of the keto specialty foods too. I've noticed that our grocery outlet has tons of name brand sweeteners, almond flours, anything that you might need. They've got MCT oils, MCT powders. They've got everything marketed to keto, and a lot of times it's at a discount. So that's a good place to check too, are places like that.
Right. And so again, this was just some really brief tips. I don't think we said anything that's all that earth-shattering or
groundbreaking
or anything, but we get it. I mean, we feel the pinch just like you do as well. So I think last night I put $50 in my tank, and it was I only had a quarter of a tank left. And that actually might be better than some places around the world, and also even here where we live. But I still noticed that, okay, wow, I just put $50 in to fill it up completely.
It's 50 instead of 30.
It's right, exactly. It's 50 instead of 30. That's another 20 out of my pocket that we can't spend on food or something else because I got to keep the car filled up. So anyway, we feel the pinch just like everybody else does, and we want you to know that there's ways you can still be successful, still do keto if that's what you want to do, and still have success and keep things under control. So we hope that you have a great rest of the week, and we will talk at you later. Bye-bye.